Hey everyone, Stacks here. Welcome back to the channel. If you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button and prepare to leave a like because this video is going to be great. And today we're checking out Ruins of Ravencroft Carnage #1. And the next video I'm going to do right after this is going to be Ruins of Ravencroft Sabretooth #1. So I'm going to try to get both those out pretty quick. Kind of wanted to do just the Sabretooth one, but the storylines tie together, so fortunately my LCS had an additional copy, so I picked it up today. The rain is coming down. It is pouring outside my house. I don't think my microphone's going to pick it up, but it may. If we get some thunder and lightning and stuff in the background, it may pick up, so I apologize for any of that if you happen to hear it. So let's talk about the creative team here. We've got Frank Tieri as your writer. You have Angel Unzueta as your artist for all the modern day scenes, which the art there is pretty good. And then the Guiu Vilanova is your, I know I pronounced that wrong, is your flashback artist. I really like the way they did the pages on these flashback pages. So they really have this old and like historic vibe to them going on. Just wait till we get to them, you'll like them. Rachel Rosenberg is your colorist. And VC's Travis Lanham is your letterer. Not enough credit to those letterers out there, guys. If you didn't follow Absolute Carnage, which if you're probably clicking on this Carnage video, you probably followed Absolute Carnage. But if you didn't, for whatever reason, Ravencroft got burnt to the ground during the Absolute Carnage series. That's really all you need to know. If you're not familiar with Ravencroft, basically it's like, call it Arkham for the Marvel Universe, I guess. It's where they send their criminally insane. It's where they end up. It's good times, man, I'm telling you. But anyways, the book starts with Misty Knight. She's here. She's here with John Jameson, who's Man-Wolf. And they're sitting here post burnt down Ravencroft. Now, one thing you need to know about Man-Wolf is he was infected by the Carnage symbiote during Absolute Carnage. And he actually kind of caused some issues. Almost got Spider-Man and Venom killed at one point. Not really his fault. I mean, he was infected by the Carnage symbiote, but it caused a lot of issues. Now, they're standing here talking about, just visiting the site when Wilson Fisk, the Kingpin, pulls up. Well, through this conversation, Misty Knight ends up feeling betrayed because Wilson Fisk rolls out that, hey, yeah, I'm the one that got John Jameson there, his job back at Ravencroft after, they kind of should have fired him for being, a psycho killer and killing a bunch of the other guards, but whatever. Anyways, Misty Knight's asking some of the questions as to basically what interest does he have here, because she knows it goes beyond him being the mayor, you know what I mean? But it's at that time that some dude comes running up saying, like, he's sweating and freaking out and tells him, we found something. But of course we don't get to find out what that is right away because we go to our first historic jump back, and it jumps back to the early 1400s. And we find out while this hunting party while it's showing them that this area is cursed. You stay away from it basically, and if you wander into it too closely, the result is there will be dire consequences. And as these guys are hunting, as this party's hunting, they look up and they see these. Well, first of all, they see this shrine or whatever with animal skulls, a human skull on top of it, and the downward spiral of Null on it. And then they look up and they see these 3 sets of eyes, these beasts coming at them, and they come at them, and it's whatever they are, it's certain death basically. But this isn't the last moment in history that is impacted by this curse or whatever it is that resides there. Later on, it goes to Giovanni I can't ever say his name, Verrazzano, who real historic figure, traveled the East Coast in the 1500s and charted it. Well, they're saying when he came here, he saw, the spiral of death basically made out of, human corpses, and he got back on the boat and he's like, I'm done. I'm done with this area. Let's go. And that curse just kind of carried over, and like the Native Americans would warn people not to go into that area, and regardless, the people wouldn't listen. They would set up shop there, and they would end up being murdered. Jump forward, that's when we get allegedly the worst story of all of them, and that's the story of Cortland and Molly. And basically what you have is this young couple. They fell in love, they set up their homestead, and one day she goes out, she's just walking, picking flowers or whatever, sees this downward spiral and wanders off into the woods, and suddenly her husband goes out looking for her and can't find her. He sees the downward spiral though, so he calls everyone to arms, rushes into the city and says, look, they've taken Molly, the others, they've taken her. Who will stand with me? And nobody is willing to do that. He just calls them cowards, and he runs off he's going to do it on his own. Well, when Cortland walks in there, he manages to he sees a shoe and says, there's blood on it. What? And then he gets straight whacked in the back of the head. And suddenly he's got this crazy dude with the venom thing across his chest on top of him, trying to take a bite at him, just chewing on his skull. I mean, if you were going to bite somebody, would you really bite him on the skull? I mean, of all places, that's like the least tasty meat. Well, he's sitting there doing some chewing, and he gets cracked across the back of the skull by Molly with this big old rock. It's at that point that she explains, look, I've seen them, you know, these dude was wearing human skin. It ain't right. But he says, look, I've been hiding in the woods this whole time. I've seen plenty of them. So he asks, where are the rest of them? And she points him and tells him they're in there in that cave. Cortland makes a decision. He goes back, grabs the pistol. He's going to head in there and clear out the cave. He just says, look, we have been living in fear for too long. That's enough. We're done with that. He strolls into the cave, and he's immediately met just with stacks and stacks of human remains. And by his own estimation, he says this must have gone back hundreds of years. And that's when he looks up on the wall at the cave art, and you have this giant image of Null and the symbiotes, and this fact that we know that they've been here for so much longer than what we originally thought back in Spider-Man. It's at that point that he turns around and he sees all these downward spiral psychos just staring at him, looking all hungry. And they're all like, hey man, it's your turn to bring snacks. And he tells them, you want a bite to eat? You want my skin? Come and get it. And at that point, you just get some screaming from the tunnel, and then Cortland walks out, just walks right by Molly, and just has this downward spirals in his eyes now. Just absolutely crazy. From there, he walks. He just keeps walking. Molly follows him in, and he just walks straight into town. And then the first guy he sees, the guy's sitting there asking him, oh my gosh, man, what happened to you? And he doesn't even look at him. He just swings the pistol up and shoots him right in the face. And then he starts just going absolutely crazy. It says blam blam here. I think there's way too many blams from that pistol. It's not a revolver. But anyways, he ends up getting shot and going down. And he's just sitting there the whole time saying, God is coming, God is coming. And what we find out is that 8 people were actually killed. But Cortland, he wasn't one of them. He went absolutely nuts, and they locked him up basically in this one room, one cell jail out in the middle of the woods. And that's when you find out the name of this guy isn't just Cortland. It's Cortland Cassidy, the first mass murderer in the New World, which I would argue the people that were eating people earlier were probably, they were probably mass murderers too, I'm just saying. But that's not the end of the story with Cletus Cassidy's great granddaddy. Molly Ravencroft continued to visit, and she was told to stay away, but she just couldn't. She loved him. Even though he had changed, she still loved the man. But eventually that would lead to Cortland killing her and escaping and running off with the rest of this tribe. Back to present times, what you find out is there's a book. It's fully intact. It's like it was just placed there on the ground for them to find. And it's the journal of Jonas Ravencroft. Well, Kingpin goes to scoop it up, and then a hand shoots out of nowhere, and you find out that it is Reed Richards. Well, before they could get too into the discussion of what exactly they're each doing here, the construction worker comes up and said, look, we found something else below the rubble. It's in the south wing. They make it down that way. They descend down a spiral staircase, and they emerge in this huge room. And what you have down there is another facility basically intact, despite the fires and everything. And that's how this one ends. That's the end of Ruins of Ravencroft Carnage. It was pretty good. It's pretty interesting as far as some of the historic tie-ins and stuff, and how this land was always cursed, and that's why no one ever settled there. And you know, I enjoyed it. I really like the textured look on the historic pages. I thought that was really cool and kind of gave it that really cool flashback history type vibe. I don't know. I'm a history dork, so I enjoyed that. The yellowing of the pages is just a nice touch. You know what I mean? One thing I will say is that sometimes when they do these history stories, they tend to go overboard on them, and it's like with the 1 million BC stuff. I did not enjoy that hardly at all. Like 1 million BC Iron Fist and all that stuff. I just thought it got to the point where it's goofy. I think it was during Jason Aaron's Avengers run. But anyways, guys, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. I definitely enjoyed it. Definitely recommend pick it up. It's kind of got that, you know, horror vibe to it a little bit. That insane horror type, you know, mayhem type stuff. Interested to see where it goes, especially with the Sabretooth book, because I know from the preview that Logan's tied into it. So we'll see where that goes. Appreciate you checking out the video, guys. If you haven't yet, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Continue to help me grow the channel. I sincerely appreciate you and hope you guys have a great week. That's all I got. Real Comic Stacks, out.